Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. This video is for junior high history, and we're covering pages 215 to 222 today with the highlights. So, page 215, you actually don't have any highlights there. So turn the page to 216 and check out our picture of President Theodore Roosevelt there and highlight his name because you are going to want to remember him. We have a whole section on him. On page 217, highlight Roosevelt's famous motto. It's underlined there, very top of the column. Speak softly and carry a big stick. So this was his motto. What he meant by it was that America needed to be diplomatic. So that's the speaking softly, speak kindly, speak nicely, but also be prepared for an enemy attack by having a large, well-equipped army and navy. So that's the big stick behind the back. If the speaking softly doesn't work, then you whip out the big stick and you hit people with it. That was kind of his idea. So he was kind of a funny guy. Farther down the column, highlight the teddy bear and highlight that it was named in honor of Teddy Roosevelt. So the story goes that he was visiting a state and they took him out bear hunting. And when they weren't able to find anything, they brought him a bear on a leash to shoot. But the president was a true sportsman and he absolutely refused to shoot a captive animal that didn't have a fighting chance. So that is when they made the teddy bear. And now today, over 100 years later, the teddy bear remains one of the most popular toys in the world. On the next column, highlight the underlined words. President Roosevelt made plans for the building of the Panama Canal. So he's the president who planned all of this. He signed a treaty with Panama, paid them $10 million for the canal zone, and $250,000 a year beginning in 1913. And he even visited Panama while the canal was under construction. And this was the very first time that a United States president had ever traveled to a foreign country while he was still in office. So, very first one to do that. Turning the page to page 218, you can see the picture of President Roosevelt visiting the construction site, and he's sitting up there on the crane. He was a very hands-on guy. He liked to get with the people and talk to them and really experience things for himself. Now, find where it says the Great White Fleet. Highlight, in 1907, President Roosevelt sent 16 new battleships on a tour around the world, and that these ships were called the Great White Fleet. So here was his big stick that he was prepared to fight with. And these ships were called the Great White Fleet because they were painted white. And it was a goodwill tour. So they were going around visiting countries. Hey, look how cool we are. Look how nice we are. But it was also kind of like a hidden threat. Look how powerful we are. We have these awesome new modern warships, and we will use them against you if we have to. So that was Roosevelt's idea there. Now look at the discovery of the North Pole. Highlight this guy's name, Robert Peary, and highlight that he led the expedition that discovered the North Pole. So quite an accomplishment there. It took 3 tries in order for him to actually reach it, so it kind of connects to the old saying, third time's the charm. And he was able to lead the exploration party to the North Pole on April 6th, 1909. All right, page 219. We're looking at the sinking of the Titanic here. Highlight the date 1912 and highlight the Titanic. Highlight that the Titanic was considered to be unsinkable. Story goes that one of the crew members actually said that even God himself could not sink the ship. Foolish thing for him to say, because eventually it would collide with an iceberg, tear a big hole in the hull, and sink. So let's see some important things here. The ship was carrying well over 2,000 people, almost 1,000 crew members, and 1,320 passengers. It was headed for New York City, and it was traveling at top speed when the iceberg was spotted. Because it was going so fast, it couldn't turn fast enough to avoid collision. So she turned just as she reached it and scraped against the side. So she was designed to stay afloat with 4 holds or compartments flooded. Unfortunately, 5 holds were being flooded after the collision. And the truly sad part about this is that the ship was not fully stocked with lifeboats. There were not enough lifeboats for the over 2,000 people on board. So it only took about 2.5 hours for this ship to finish sinking, and over 1,500 men, women, and children died. So it was quite a tragedy, but some good did come out of it in spite of how sad it was. After this, ships were forced to comply with having enough lifeboats for everyone on board so that this sort of thing would never happen again. Highlight, in 1985, scientists discovered the shipwrecked Titanic lying southeast of Newfoundland at a depth of over 12,000 feet. You can find videos and different documentaries online where you can see the Titanic still down there. All right, turning to page 220, we're looking at World War I. So highlight the dates for World War I and for World War II. World War I was from 1914 to 1918. World War II was from 1939 to 1945. So know those dates for those. Under the World Prepares for War, highlight Kaiser Wilhelm II and that he was the ruler of Germany in 1914. Below that, find the bold term alliance. Highlight that an alliance is a promise between 2 or more countries to fight together against their enemies in the time of war. Highlight the countries that sided against Germany were called the Allied powers or the Allies. Keep highlighting those countries that sided with Germany were called the Central powers. Keep highlighting the few countries that decided not to take any sides were called neutral nations. On the next column, highlight this guy's name, Archduke Ferdinand. Now, he was the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary. You see a picture of him there with his wife. And he was visiting the country of Bosnia along with his wife when he was assassinated. So a young man with a Serbian secret society shot both Ferdinand and his wife to death. So highlight the term assassination, and then highlight this was an excuse to begin war. So find those terms, assassination and an excuse to begin war. So Germany backed Austria-Hungary, and Russia backed Serbia, who was the country that Austria-Hungary blamed for this assassination. And one by one, because of all the alliances, the European countries started declaring war on each other. One Englishman said, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." Gloomy days were ahead. On the next page, highlight this guy's name, Woodrow Wilson. Highlight that he was president of the United States at the time. Look at German U-boats and find the bold term U-boats. Around that, highlight the Germans used their new weapon of war, the U-boat. So this is underwater boat or submarine. So highlight all of that for U-boat. So being the underwater ships, the submarines, they could sink any ships that could be carrying food or supplies to Great Britain. So the United States wouldn't stop sending ships to Britain, so as a result, the Germans were sinking American ships. Now remember, America was neutral during the beginning of the war, so sinking neutral ships in a time of war was a big no-no. All right, let's look at the sinking of the Lusitania. Highlight the date, May 1915. Highlight the name of the boat, the Lusitania. This is a British passenger liner. On the next column, highlight that a German U-boat fired a torpedo into the side of the Lusitania. Highlight that the ship sank quickly and that over 1,000 people lost their lives, including, keep highlighting, over 100 Americans. Americans were very, very angry over this, and many began calling for war, but the United States still remained neutral. So we'll stop there for today, and we'll pick back up with the United States enters the war tomorrow. Let me know if you guys have any questions over this.